Hello and welcome to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. Thanks for tuning in. You've got Jim Riley here with Rod Kuntz. Rod, good catching up.
Good morning, everyone.
So we were just talking about board games before I hit record. And I think my takeaway on board games is what a great way to spend time with your family instead of in front of the TV, or on our cell phones looking at Instagram.
There's other stuff to do than electronics. Absolutely. Yeah. And card games. There's a bajillion different card games you can do without being tied up with computers.
Oh, what a great idea. I'm going to play card games tonight with the kids. They like Uno.
That's a good one too.
Maybe we'll do that. Our pastor does a podcast and he gave 10 ways to strengthen the family. And one of them was playing board games. And one of the things that they like to do is on the inside of like the box cover, they write everybody that played that game that night and the date and who won. So then they can reflect back on, remember this Christmas, so-and-so was here and then that person won, or, what a great way to just build memories and have some fun with it. So I think we need to do that.
Absolutely. Do more of it. And if you don't, you can pick up board games. Well, anywhere. You can get board games all over the place, but board games are inexpensive. Yeah. And I mean, for the cost of going to a movie, for example, versus a board game that can give you hours and hours and years of entertainment and building relationships and teaching, like we just talked about, life lessons. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's amazing. Do it. Go buy a board game today, everyone.
There you
go. Christmas.
They've got them. Hey, not to get off topic, because I do have a topic for today. A couple of weeks ago, we were on the show and we were talking about spending time with our family and dating our spouses and things like that. And you'd given me an idea and I didn't want to disclose it on the show. Did I ever tell you what I did for date night with my wife?
No.
Okay. So this came out of the show. And hey, look, if you're listening and you're in a relationship, you can do this, and take this as advice, healthy advice, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you need to take a little break or let your significant other realize, you haven't forgotten about them. So you said, date night doesn't even have to be going out. And so that particular night, we hadn't had a date night for a while. And I thought, you know what? It's tough to get a sitter. I don't feel like going out, but I do feel like dating my wife tonight. So what I did, Rod, and this is because of you and the reminder that you don't have to go out. So we have a nice finished basement at our house. And I rallied the two girls because my wife was away. I rallied the girls. I said, hey, look, I'm going to pretend like we have a sitter coming and tell your mom we're going to go on a date so that when she gets home, she'll get ready for the date. Don't give up the gig. And they're like, oh, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to make her favorite dinner and I'm going to set a table down in the basement. We have like a speakeasy bar down there. So I set up a table with tablecloth, fresh flowers, champagne, glass of wine, and made her favorite dinner. And then we have a little movie room down there too. So I set up the movie room with, like fluffed up the couch and a blanket and stuff like that and figured out what movie to watch. So anyways, she gets home and she's like, okay, I'll get ready for the date. And the girl's like all giddy, it's like, what's wrong with you guys? Like, well, grandma's coming to watch us, which almost blew it because my mom doesn't even drive.
Oh no.
She's like, grandma's coming to watch us. How's she getting here? I said, no. I said, the neighbor kid's coming over. Don't worry about it. Anyway, she got all dressed up and I said, hey, I want to show you what I bought the girls for Christmas in the basement real quick before we leave to see if you approve it. And she's like, oh, okay. So she follows me down there. I get the lights down, the candles are on, and she just melted, and what was really cool about it too, is that the girls rallied behind it and they wanted to serve us.
Oh, how wonderful.
So they literally, I don't even know where they got it, but they wrapped that, the towel over their arm, like hanging off their arm. They walk down with one hand behind their back and they're like, can we serve you? Like, where do you guys come up with this shit?
Oh, that's so precious.
So they served us and then they left us alone, for the rest of the night so that we can enjoy our date. And we just had the best conversation. We enjoyed some wine and just sat around a table in our basement, basically, enjoying each other's company. And then we throw on a movie. And then my daughter hears, the TV going. and she comes down with a bowl of popcorn, you know, and some sodas, right? So, anyways, we had a wonderful date. Thank you for reminding me about dating my spouse, as well as you can do it at home. You can make something
Right.
out of just home. You know, it was pretty cool.
Well, you're welcome. And I'm glad that, and I hope anyone else who listens and picks up a tip, anything from either one of us, just try it, apply it to your life, and great things will happen.
Yeah. And, I pulled that together in just a couple hours because, you don't always have a lot of time, but just being spontaneous and making it a point to do something different, towards your spouse really, it makes a difference. It shows them that you care and you love them. So, anyways, all right. Here's what I want to talk about today. It's not necessarily a topic, it's a person. And it's the person that brings value. And I want to wrap this value into the end of the year and what we're doing to head into 2024, which can be a crazy year. So, as you know, and I talked about this on the last show, I received a whole bunch of books and gifts from Grant Cardone, whom I invest in one of his real estate projects, hence the reason why he sent me all this stuff. So I've read his millionaire booklet, and I'm on his new book, his 10X book. And I'm just thinking about, a few things that we've talked about on the show is that a lot of the skills that we hear over time, and this dates way back, Napoleon Hill, all the greats, Zig Ziglar, through ages of time. Most of these guys are saying the same thing in their own words.
Yes.
And the reality is that we have, and this is part of the message I want to resonate. And I do want to talk about Grant Cardone because I know you've spent a lot of time and energy in his courses, is that we have the ability as individuals to read this content, to act on this content, to use the tools that these influencers or these successful entrepreneurs have put together and put in front of us to make us better if we're willing to listen to the advice, read the advice, and act on it. And by the way, most of this advice is either free or available for the price of a book. Okay. Now, this millionaire booklet that I got, I think it was $4. I went online to see how much some of these things were. I think it was $4. The 10X book, I think it's $12. You can get Napoleon Hill, his book, Think and Grow Rich, for probably get it for $5 at a thrift store or something, but
Yeah.
The point is that
a buck.
the information is out there for you to learn and find success in your own life, whether that's financial, personal growth, your relationships, how you treat your family, your friends, all these things. But we as humans, we choose to be, lack of a better word, lazy,
That's a good word.
or dismissive of the quality of the content that's put in front of us. And so I'd like for you to weigh in a little bit on maybe some of the lessons you learned from Grant Cardone, at the time that you learned them. I know it's been over a couple of years, and what you gleaned from that and what difference it made for you in your life now, because I'm allowing this to serve as a good reminder for me of the things that I've done, the things that I am currently doing, the things that I'm teaching others to do, but also generating new habits for myself going into the new year. And I'm not necessarily a new year, got to switch my habits type of person. I try to always improve, but it does serve as a nice reminder for me at this time, especially because I just got the books for Christmas, that we can take this content and turn it into something significant if we choose to. And that's part of what this topic is about, is choosing to do things differently moving forward based on the content that's available for people to learn. So I think I filled enough airtime for you to have come up with your response.
It didn't take me long to come up with a response to that, because you teed me up with something you said earlier. And that is, all this content is out there. All the advice, all of the plans, all of the teaching tools, everything you need is already there. And you can read it, but until you apply it and make it your own, it's just content. And you can't make it your own without applying it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's what you said, make it your own. And when I started training with, going through Grant Cardone's training, I had been through a couple of different training programs, which I did not like. They were stilted. They were old school. There were sales techniques that, they'd been using and reusing and rehashing for 40 years. I mean, it was nothing new. It was just a new face saying it.
Mm-hmm.
But Grant turned it all upside down. He literally said, everybody's doing this, so do it just the opposite, which is what I was doing anyway. So he basically gave me a license to do what I knew to do naturally, which is break the mold, break the set, and do it your own way.
Mm-hmm.
Bring your personality to it and do what you're comfortable with. And that would be my advice to anybody listening to this is you have your own personality and your own values. And any content that you read or listen to or seminars that you go to, it's all just a part of it. And until you mold it into and fashion it into something that's your own. And you mentioned it too, that these books aren't saying anything new. It's the same content, but it's somebody else's version of it. And you need to take that and we need to start making our own versions. And that makes a new version of us.
Mm-hmm.
And you said this too, that you're not one who goes out and does a New Year's resolution. I'm going to change this because, we should be happy with who we are. And I remember I was in high school. I'm going to go way back. I'm changing course here just a little bit. Way back in high school, and everyone was, well, what's your New Year's resolution? What are you doing? Because that was a thing back then. Everyone was to make a resolution, right? And I said, I make changes as necessary all through the year.
Nice.
And as a high school student, I literally said my resolution is to not make a New Year's resolution again. I remember distinctly saying that when I was a high school kid. And so that has been my modus operandi. If a change needs to be made, you make it now. You don't wait.
Yeah.
And maybe that's an entrepreneurial spirit, but it's what you're saying. We need to take advantage of all these tools and apply them and make them our own. And the value is going to be not only 10x, when you can 10x it and then you take that over time, add a decade to it. Now you're 100xing it, 1000xing it. This is exponential mental and personal growth and emotional growth as well.
And what I notice about this advice that's given from all these greats, whether it's Zig Ziglar in the 80s and 90s to Grant and way back when, is that oftentimes they'll reference, hey, you can use this skill set, and they'll list out a dozen other types of businesses. But because they're in a specific business, the balance of their content focuses on, what they've done, right? And I think what happens is we forget what you said a minute ago is apply it to your own situation and create your own set of rules based on what you're learning, right? So when Grant says 10x it and you're thinking, well, he's in real estate and investing, I got to go 10x selling stuff. Like that's not who No, he's saying, look at your own life, whatever you're involved with, figure out who you are and how you're going to go about, succeeding in that and how you're going to 10x what you're doing. That also applies, by the way, if you're a giver, if you have the opportunity to give. I remember talking to David Meltzer one time and we were talking about donations to orphanages in Baja. I said, well, I want to donate $100,000 to these orphanages next year. And he says, Jim, why would you limit yourself? Why wouldn't you just say you want to be the largest donor to the orphanages in Baja next year? And it really resonated with me because I was already limiting myself. The year hadn't even begun. I already gave myself a limit, and I think that's part of Grant's point too, is 10x it. And like you said, and then 10x that and 10x that. Next thing you know,
Yes.
you've 100,000 exit, right? And, these principles that we learn, that we read about, that you hear on shows like ours, they do apply, they do work, but you have to integrate it into your own value system, your own goals, and what you're doing. and you'll find the happiness there. So don't go switching careers on me because I'm telling you about Grant. You don't need to go jump into real estate and investing because we're talking about Grant Cardone, but you can look at the principles that he's talking about. And, I like him because his messaging resonates with me too, especially in the political arena. He's pretty firm on our American freedoms and things like that, which I appreciate, especially somebody at that caliber. So, he fits my personality, and that's another part of the process, right? Find somebody, find a teaching that fits your personality, and you're going to glean more from that because it's resonating with you.
Right. And I can't say that enough, because there are some, well, I think we all know this. There are some people that they just don't click for us, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's in our own social circles or in business or at work even. I notice there are little cliques. There are some people that just tend to gravitate toward one another, and you don't have to be one of the cool kids. You can make an imprint, make an impact, and make yourself successful being yourself and getting comfortable with that. And I think that's what all these training and teaching tools do. If you're studying and learning not to become somebody else, but to become the best version of yourself. That's what this is all about. It's how can we be the best we can be? Sounds like an Army commercial, but it really is true. And I'll share a quick story here. I was on a call. I mentioned this to you a while back. I reconnected with some people that I lived in the dorms on campus for 2 quarters. They were on the quarter system back then. And in those 2 quarters, there were a dozen people from all over the country on that floor that I was on. And it's amazing because many of them have stayed in touch. There was one person, actually, a friend of mine that kept everyone connected. And so now he's reconnected all of us. And I just got off on my first Zoom call. When COVID hit, they started Zooming to just build more connection. And it's amazing how little things that we take for granted have made an impact on other people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
2 quarters. So we're talking, January to May, right? And those 4 months, and we all had our own lives, our own course schedules. It's not like we were all doing the same thing. I was in the military. We all dated different people, ran in different circles, but there was a core value with all of them. And every single one of them graduated. Every single one of them have had successful businesses, families, the whole thing. But we're so different. Every single one of us are so absolutely different. And, for all that we hear about, the university systems today being indoctrination centers, they can be, but it doesn't mean that they are. Okay.
Sure.
I can see where they were trying to imprint ideals on me even then. Books that we were required to read, for example, making, pedophilia okay. Lolita was a required novel that we had to read in one of my English courses. And, was that grooming? Was that social engineering? I think it depends on the people. I mean, it could be, but it didn't affect me that way. I still don't think it's okay, right? I didn't think it was okay then, and I don't think it's okay now. So it didn't interfere with my way of thinking. So again, it's so important to bring our own value systems and our own ways of thinking and our own personalities to whatever it is that where we're getting our input. And we have to make it our own. That's going to be, if you're going to title this podcast, I'd say make it your own. We have to do that. It's our obligation to do that.
Well, I'm going to have to title it. There's no way around that. But, and so I want to take another step here because this is going to come out just before New Year's. And I want people to understand that the tools are out there and available and have been out there for a very long time, anywhere from free to courses that are thousands of dollars, but they're all pretty much teaching the same thing. But what it comes down to is making it your own as Rod just suggested, and doing the work. And the gear that I want to shift into, and we'll wrap up on this gear, but that is, you have to do the work, and it's not going to be easy, because nothing worth doing is easy. And I talked to my brother yesterday, and just loved catching up with him and reminding him of old times and stuff like that. Because, my older brother, he always influenced, all the bad stuff we did. And, I took him racing with me once down in Baja, and I had him play a critical role, which was on a chase team, and they kind of follow us down the Mexican, Baja Peninsula. It was pretty dangerous. And when we got back home from 7 days of doing that, he was pissed. He hated me. He's like, Jim, he's like, that was the worst experience of my life. They threw rocks at me. I could have died. Like, just all these complaints, right? And that was the day that we got back. And I'm like, I don't know, man, it was a pretty good time. Like, it was hard. Don't get me wrong. We got stuck out in the middle of the desert, 2 days of driving back and forth, trying to fix a vehicle. I mean, there's just, the stories go on and on and on. I get it. It was hard. But I reminded him yesterday, I said, you hated me when we got home that day, but I've been listening to you brag about that trip the last 10 years to your friends about how hard it was and intense and awesome, and the people and the food, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And that serves as a great reminder to all of us when we're in the middle of it, doing it, and it's hard, man, you could regret it. You could be miserable. You could wish you were doing something else. But I promise you, when you do a good job and you're following your values and your goals, and you're in the middle of it, when you come out the other side and you look back and go, wow, that was awesome. Yeah, it was hard, but it was awesome. Look at the results. So when you're building your own plan based on a set of advice that you may get from somebody like a Grant Cardone, or maybe it's from this podcast or the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, or, if you're like me, you listen to Andy Frisella's podcast. When you're listening to these words of advice and you're reading words of wisdom, making it your own plan, realize it's going to get hard, but the value on the other side is massive, and the reward is massive. So do yourself a favor and grind through the hard stuff so you can see what the other side looks like.
Absolutely. And gosh, there was so much I wanted to say. I'm going to give a shout out to my wife right now, because she had an epiphany when we had young children. Mm-hmm. And she said she was doing laundry like every day, laundry, 1-2 loads every day. My kids were outdoors, they were active, and then you have kids, and then there's just regular stuff. And she used to complain. I don't remember her complaining, but she must have in her head complaining about doing laundry all the time. I'm always doing laundry. And then one day it just was different. And she had been listening to somebody, I think it was a Joyce Myers or something. And she said, I made friends with my laundry. I made friends with the hard, right? The mundane, the stuff the chores. She made friends with it. So we can choose to be antagonistic toward the things that are hard in our lives, or we can make them our friends. And then we're doing it together. Yeah. We've got a common goal. So whatever your heart is, for those of you listening out there, whatever your heart is, make friends with it. Make it your friend. If you're not getting along with someone, what's the best way to change that relationship? Get to know them, make them your friend, or just accept them for who they are. Yeah. Accept the laundry for what it is. It's always going to be there. Dishes are always going to be there. Right? You're going to have to cook another meal. It's always going to have to happen. You're going to always have to fill the car up with gas. We never complained about gas prices. Even when it was over $4 a gallon, it's just like, well, what are you going to do? You have to have it. You're going to have to pay for it. So, and until you can affect the political environment to make a change or drive less or whatever, there's no use complaining. Make friends with it. So whatever your heart is, that's it. And it should be some good stuff instead of hard stuff coming up, because we're in that joyous time of year, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, to summarize, make it your own. Get that advice, make it your own. Know that it will be hard, but there will be tremendous rewards on the other side of that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just that simple. And if you've been listening along, you'll know as you look at that advice, that you follow your values and your own goals, that satisfies not only you, but you and your family, and bring them along for the ride too. Teach, maybe everybody learn something. So I'm looking forward to finding some more hards in 2024 and pushing through and see what it looks like on the other side.
Doing it already.
I love it.
Just keep tuning in, because we'll be sharing our hard with you next year.
Yeah, I've got some plans. Right on.
Me too.
Rod, thanks, buddy. Good to see you.
Thank you, Jim. It's always a pleasure.
All right. If you like the show, share it. If you want to learn more, we'd love to have you in our community, the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. We meet every Monday night. We do 30 minutes of kind of a robust lesson with 30 minutes of Q&A or more, where all of our members can bring their challenges, problems, work to the table, and we help try to solve those things for them. So we're super proud of that group, and we love having them. So anyways, share the show. Thanks. See everybody next year.